Today we're going to be doing a highly requested video. This is a request that I have gotten so many times I can't count. We're going to be talking about the cons of living in the villages. And you know, I think many of you ask me to touch on the cons as opposed to the pros, because anybody can get the pros anywhere. You know, you can get sort of the brochure of the villages or any other part of Florida or the US for that matter, but it takes a little bit of digging a little beneath the surface to get to the actual cons. Not the obvious things, you know, not the, well, it's hot in Florida. You know, we don't want that. The other thing that we're also not going to do is say,
if you don't like the sunshine and beautiful beaches, then you won't like...
No. On my channel, we're talking about reality, because how can you make a good decision if it's all just fluff? You know, we have to get past the fluff. You know what I mean? So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, let me just say, you know, I'm a coastal agent. My area of expertise is the coast of Florida, predominantly the southwest coast, anywhere from Marco Island on up to Sarasota. That is my zone. My team and I cover that vast stretch of beauty. And then also we touch on the East Coast as well, because, you know, most of you know, if you've got a map, because I'm sure you know that the state of Florida is not very wide, and it's pretty easy to go from the southwest coast to the southeast coast very easily. Easy to come across the state of Florida. Takes about an hour and a half or so, maybe a little longer to do that. So sometimes we'll have people that are looking in Naples, but they're also looking maybe in Weston, maybe they're looking in Fort Lauderdale. It's not that far. So we have to kind of get to know both areas to advise people appropriately as they tell us what they like, how they want to live. All of that said, same thing with the villages. The villages, although not coastal, you know, the villages is right there where Ocala is in Florida. That's probably going to be the biggest city that I can tell you it's close to. So it's in the center of the state. A lot of good things about being in the center of the state. You know, obviously you're going to be less apt to be hurricane prone. There's a lot of good things about being in that location. The things that maybe aren't so good is that you're not real close to an ocean or the Gulf of Mexico. We're not going to be talking about those things. We are talking about living in the villages. I have lost a decent amount of clients from Southwest Florida into the villages. And when I say lost, I mean, I showed them everything maybe from Naples to Sarasota, and they decided to go to the villages. Equally as many people, if not more, go from the villages to one or other of the coast. So what I'm going to be giving you is my perception of the villages, having visited there several times, because we have clients that have kind of gone back and forth, and also what I have heard firsthand from my clients that have either moved there or left there. So let's jump into these things that are definitely considered cons in the villages. Number one, small lots. There aren't really, if you want a half acre, you want to be in something that feels a little bit rural, you're coming from rural Massachusetts, that's your comfort zone. You want something that feels like that, but you want the villages vibe. No, you're not getting that. You're not. You're going to look out your bedroom window and into your neighbor's bedroom window. If you're lucky, you're going to look out your lanai and look at a little man-made lake, but probably you're going to look across that lake into your neighbor's lanai. If you're lucky, you've got a golf course beyond that. But for the most part, you are on top of your neighbors. You're not going to be able to sit outside in your nightgown, drink some coffee, and not have Marge waving hello and asking you if you got that at Penny's. You're going to be on top of each other. It's the nature of living in the villages. Number two, the entire thing is an HOA. There is nothing but HOA. It's all HOA. You're not going to be able to go do things like put a garden in, put a shed up, put a little fence in this section of the yard behind the lake for Fido. You cannot do that. You're not going to be able to expand your lanai without their written permission. There's boards over boards over boards that have to approve it. And you know, if 97-year-old Joe does not like the idea of it, he can cause a whole bunch of problems for you. So that HOA thing, although there are good things about it because it keeps everything uniform if you're looking for uniform, but if you're not and you want to have that garden, you kind of feel like, hey, you know, I want to plant some fruit trees. I always wanted to have a Meyer lemon tree. I want to have an avocado tree. You're not doing that in the Villages. Number 3, yapping puppies, yapping dogs. Now, most communities have rules in terms of how big the dog can be, how many dogs you can have. But remember, number 1, the lots are small, you're on top of each other. So if you end up in a bad circumstance where across the street behind you and on both sides are little yapping 14-pound dogs. And listen, I love dogs. I truly do. I don't mean that. I love dogs. But there are times where you just don't want to hear them all barking. Maybe you just want to relax with your window open and read a book, but you can't do it because little Eddie the Shih Tzu next door barks constantly. When little Eddie next door even hears you breathing, he's barking. You don't want to live like that. You can't just go outside with your coffee and look around without Mrs. Kravitz peeking out the window and watching what you're doing. And you see her out of the corner of your eye, and it aggravates the heck out of you. So you go to your backyard and you try it there, and then you see Marge across the way and her lanai waving at you, and you like Marge, but you don't want to be asked to play cards every night, and you don't want to feel like if you did not play pinochle this week that everybody's going to be talking about you and wondering why you don't want to play pinochle. That can sort of happen in the Villages. I've heard some stories about the cliques in the Villages, and that is actually a true example of somebody that wanted to play bunco. Is that what it's called? Bunco? So I actually have a past client that moved into Naples from the Villages, and that was the tipping point for him, was that he was part of this bunco. I don't even know what bunco is. Let me know in comments if you know what bunco is. But apparently he was part of this bunco club. He didn't want to be part of it anymore. He got sick of playing it, and it messed up how many people were playing, and people got kind of snotty with him, and it was the tipping point. It was the reason that he moved out of the Villages and moved to Naples. Number 5, you don't golf. Now, listen, I don't know if you knew this, but there are more than 50 golf courses. I don't know the exact amount, but it's more than 50 golf courses in the Villages. If you enjoy golfing, it is your mecca. It's included in the fees, the HOA fees that you pay. You can golf anywhere. Different courses, different styles, different levels of confidence in your golfing. It is the golfing mecca. Now, does everyone golf that lives in the Villages? No, but do most people golf? Is that the reason that they're there? Many of them, yes. I can't connect with anyone because everybody's talking about their handicap, and I don't even know what that means. I don't golf. I don't want to golf. I don't want to learn how to golf, but that's what everybody does. And you know, if you're familiar with golfing or if you're a golfer yourself, that's a lifestyle. That is a whole lifestyle. So if you're not a golfer, you might feel a little bit left out. Number 6, this is one of the big reasons that people have left the Villages and come to other areas that I've spoken to personally. They feel like they're wasting their money. So everybody's going to pay an HOA fee. Now, in my opinion, on average, what most people pay in the Villages, which is in the ballpark, not exact, I'm taking it sort of as a median, it's around $500 a month-ish. So if you're paying $500 a month and you are not golfing, you don't play pickleball, you don't play tennis, you'll go to the pool, but you basically go to hang out for an hour or so, maybe once or twice a week, but it's not an overall lifestyle for you. You don't participate in all the crafty things they do. You moved to the Villages because you wanted to be around like-minded people of similar age. You wanted to be in a safe environment, and it just seemed like Shangri-La to you. if you aren't utilizing what you're paying for and you feel like you're paying $500 a month to have somebody cut your grass, that can start to get to people, and people can start to quantify that $500 and say, well, you know, I could have moved to Sarasota where I really wanted to live, or I could have moved, you know, right outside of Lido Key and got myself a little older home. That's really what I wanted. You might start to feel that way. You might start to feel like I could take that $500 a month and go get what I really wanted instead of wasting this on things that I'm not even utilizing. Number 7, this is another big one that I hear all the time, usually after the 3-year mark. No uniqueness. Everything starts to look the same. People feel like they're living sort of in a Stepford community where every house almost looks identical, and you're not allowed to overly customize. The committee, the board, the architectural committee in your community will only allow 4 colors that you can paint your house and that you can do your roof. You can't put up the little cute white picket fence you wanted to. You can't customize at all. Some of the communities in the villages even have rules against putting things out like a rocker. There's things that they get very, very strict in those communities, and it's kind of like a one for all sort of thing. So if you came from Upper Michigan and you had a 1-acre lot and you had this big, beautiful 2-story with a big wraparound porch, it's going to be an incredibly difficult transition for you to the villages. And I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, you know what, Barrett, I'm prepared for it. I already know. I've been there a few times and I'm aware of it. But when you've lived there for a few years, it can start to get to you. It can start to feel like you painted every room in your house white, if you know what I mean. All right, number 8, I'm going to bring it up. Even though I said I wasn't going to, it's important to mention, you're in the center of Florida, the center of the state. Do you think it's humid? Do you think you might feel like you are in the reptile house at the zoo? Yes, you will. It is swampy, and it is hot, and it is buggy. I don't know how else to describe it to you. Personally, I'm one of those people that I am a living, breathing episode of when beaches attack. I get bit by everything, and I get hives and welts, and I have to take Benadryl shots and prednisone, and you know the gig. I am that person. When I go to the villages, I have to spray myself with literally just coated in bug spray, and I still get bit. The no-see-ums, unbearable. And yes, no-see-ums is a real thing. They are literally bugs you can't see, and they will destroy you. If you're like me and you have a tendency to, if you get bit by a mosquito and it swells up like a hive, you're not going to like that. I always say to myself, it's no big deal. I'll get used to it every single summer. And I live in Florida. Every single summer, it feels like it gets worse. And the doctors always say, oh no, it'll get better a little, as your body adjusts to the different bugs, it'll get better. It doesn't get better. It does not. I basically have a prescription for prednisone on lock at all times. Number 9, it feels fake. It feels like it's not real life to people. So you don't see the typical diversity and kids running around and real life stuff. It kind of feels like you're living in a fairy tale. Now you may say, that sounds great. I would love to live in a fairy tale. And it might be great for you. As I always say on this channel, I give you the good and the bad. And even though these things fall into the con and the bad category, for you, it might be good. So as I always say, it is not up to me to tell you where to live. I give you the facts as I perceive them and as I receive them. So I'm giving you the pieces of the puzzle, and then you create your own picture. You might say, Barrett, these 9 things you have so far listed, not a problem for me. I'm just making you aware of what I hear. And a lot of people say they feel like it is one political agenda. And if it happens to be the political agenda that you do not like, you might have a problem with that. So that's a big issue for some people. It depends how dug in you are. And again, like I said, lack of diversity, lack of kids, lack of things that you see with the children constantly. I don't know if you guys saw that. So it's right behind me, the window. My doorbell rang. I wasn't seeing it, but apparently there was somebody for a delivery kind of looking like, should she come in or should she not? So, I have 3 YouTube channels. You may not know that. I have this channel, and then I also have a weight loss channel mainly for women that are over 40 that want to lose weight. And then I also have another channel that's called Living Life Over 50, and that is for anybody who's over 50, and it's all about lifestyle, nothing to do with food, lifestyle, makeup, beauty, clothing, all things for people over 50. So I get packages all the time from companies. So anyway, just a little aside there, a little diversion there for a minute. All right, so as I was saying, it can feel a little bit fake and not so much grounded to real life. And then the last one, I saved this one as the last one, and I'm really curious if any of you have heard this. If you've made it this far, I truly appreciate you, and I would love to know if you have heard this. So, the swingers. Have you heard about that? That there are swingers. You know the pineapple? Do you know about the pineapple? Apparently, if you're a swinger, you put a little pineapple symbol on your door, and that means that you're a swinger, you're into that, you want to be part of the swingers club. So here's the thing with that. I have done a little investigating into that, and I would say it's about 50-50. Half of the people said it's an absolute lie. It is not true. They know nothing about it. But the other half of the people have kind of smirked and said, oh, no, I don't know what that is, ha, ha, ha. But you could tell there was some validity to it. And listen, when we drove around and kind of looked for these pineapples on the door, I'm going to tell you what, I saw some. I'm not kidding you. And I saw some on golf carts, because if you didn't know, the Villages is like a golf cart community. It's golf cart living. You pretty much golf cart everywhere around there. I saw with my own eyes some pineapple on the golf cart. So I don't know. I mean, if I'm going to make my best guess, I'm going to say there's probably some of that going on. Now, how do you feel about that? Listen, I put that in the con category. I think that's maybe not something that I would be into. Maybe that's going to be a pro for you. I don't know. But I think we should table that one. I don't know. What do you know about that? Because for me, I'm telling you, it was very 50-50. I couldn't get it. It's sort of like we don't talk about Fight Club. You know what I mean? We don't talk about the Swingers Club in the Villages. That's the way it felt. It's the way it felt to me. So anyway, those are my 10 cons to living in the Villages. Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear them. I read all my comments down below.